Lisa Miller. Lisa is a visionary entrepreneur who founded VIE Healthcare, Y or V, a company specializing in cost reduction and operational improvements for hospitals. Through her leadership, they grew into an industry leader, transforming hospital purchasing processes and delivering significant cost-saving results. She successfully scaled her startup into innovation and through innovation and strategic growth, leading to its acquisition by Morgan Stanley Partners. She now advises companies on scaling strategies and revenue growth. You know, she's a great example of being a consultant and then becoming an entrepreneur and then back to consulting. So, welcome, Lisa. It's a
Thank you.
pleasure to see you here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and welcome everybody. It's a great group and I've enjoyed this morning a lot. So I'm going to start. I am a little more fast paced because of my Northeast brain. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go a little faster. And and if you have any questions or anything, just put them in the chat, but I'll get to those, try to get as much as I can. So welcome. Today we're talking about the purpose behind, the power of purpose with your healthcare startups and how do we engage investments through mission and margin, right? Because it's a combination of both. I put together 15 kind of innovative and creative ways for you or for folks who are looking to attract investors. That's at the end. If we don't get to all of them, I would love to pass that and send that to the group and get that out to everybody. So a little bit about me real quickly. I have been in healthcare all my life, very different from the clinicians, but I started my work at cytodiagnostics in the sales field. I went to Stryker Surgical. I was one of the first women hired at Stryker in sales in the OR. I started my company in 1999, VIE Healthcare, because I too have a passion for the OR and saw a lot of opportunities to optimize. In 2022, I sold my company to Morgan Stanley. And then they bolted us onto a company called Spendman. And now this year I started my own firm as Julie had said earlier. So I come from a different perspective, but
Hey,
hoping that,
Lisa,
yes.
can you go to presentation mode, please?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. Sorry. There we go. So perfect. Okay. Um, so
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. So investors are looking for authenticity, right? There's some great research around that talks about First Round Capital did a survey and they spoke about how investors prioritize authenticity in founders over technical expertise, which is really interesting, right? It emphasized the power of genuine purpose-led initiative. Additionally, Deloitte had a purpose report and it showed 73% of investors believe companies that articulate their purpose generate higher returns. And it reinforces that the founder story and that startup mission is so powerful. So why does purpose matter? There's four reasons. Purpose builds emotional connection. And I can say that in my own experience where I've been connected to founders because they've personally impacted my life. And I believe that probably resonates with more investors than we realize. And it also creates differentiation, right? Because you could be in a similar field or in a similar service line, but that why makes you stand out. And people really follow people with passion. I've heard that a lot from my work at VI. We came in to help hospitals save money. We weren't the only company, but I believe that my passion and really wanting to help my customers' outcomes was a differentiator. And margin validates sustainabilities, right? Investors are looking for startups with clear path to profitability. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a couple of slides because, we want to connect both mission and margin. And of course, healthcare is just generally purpose-driven overall, so it's really important. And purpose as an asset, right? Talked about it a little earlier, but it is a differentiator. because investors do prioritize solutions that deliver results and improve outcomes, and a purpose-driven healthcare startup that integrates the data, right? So it's storytelling. It talks about in this example, reduced readmissions or increased access, really resonates with investors. So three other kind of points to, drive this home a little bit more, but certainly having, highlighting the purpose and the potential. It's purpose-driven value proposition. And I think with startups, I see a lot of different presentations, and I think a lot of those could articulate more of the mission, or really more of that storytelling in combination with that financial viability. So you're wanting to balance your heart and what's drawn you to this startup with also the financial aspects. So I call this the founder's challenge, right? So it's the emotional journey of healthcare founders, right? There's a personal experience that drives that innovation. And usually it's drawn from a personal, inspiration. Again, I'll go back to starting VIE Healthcare because I was in the OR, spent 7 years working in the OR, and I saw firsthand a tremendous amount of waste, and I saw people, working really, really hard, but there was some, quite a bit of inefficiencies. So usually that frontline experience, or those founders draw inspiration from their own encounters. And then in navigating emotional turmoil, as I call it, the struggle to balance your personal mission and those business objectives can lead to those challenges, right? Because Lily talked about it earlier, it develops that resilience. You've got to think differently, and how do you make this mission viable? And again, I'll talk a bit about some of those financial aspects. And then I think having your personal stories does build trust. There is a vulnerable aspect to it, but people, I think one of the questions I always got the most was, why did you start VIE? And it almost always took me off guard initially. And then finally, I built that into my presentations when I was talking to hospital executives. So, just to, am I going the right way? Yeah. So why personal stories matter. It's the emotional resonance that drives trust, right? They're more likely to fund startups when they feel a genuine connection. The purpose creates differentiation, that mission and margins, shows sustainability. So a couple of quick tips. And again, I'll give everybody this deck because it's got a lot of information. But I think it's important to share why you started the company. This example, right? A founder created a wearable device for seizure detection after their child experienced life-threatening seizures. If we have enough time, I'm not sure, but I have a quick video, or at least a couple of seconds into the video, of why a daughter started a company based on her father's passing. And I think these videos or these discussions are really important. And then you have to highlight the broader problem, really, you have to illustrate that it affects others, and really specify that challenge and the connection. And then, of course, link the problem, show the mission and the solution. So, in this example, a founder who cared for their aging parents creates an AI-driven medication. So explain how your personal experience inspired your solution. And I think finally, it's really about highlighting the opportunity for investors. So they want to know, how is this going to be profitable for them too, right? So this device is preventing unnecessary amputations and saving health systems $20,000 per patient. And I think those numbers matter. And just a slight nuance in these numbers, I find that sometimes the numbers are so large. We make bigger numbers, and yes, we could show an addressable market, but I think we have to be realistic about, what are those sales, and what are those potentials. And I think being more realistic is actually a realer way to engage investors. And then early validation is really important, even if it's small early validation with small stories from users is really important, right? Highlight how your solution is already helping others. And I think, this is really important about collecting testimonials or stories. And then always end with a call to action. And I think this is really important, right? So you want to close the slide, summarize your mission, the investment opportunity, and how funding will drive impact and growth. These are a couple more examples, but for the purpose of time, I won't go through each of them. But I certainly feel like these examples show in every single case why the founder started the company and what that opportunity was, and why this is important to at least also have as you summarize what you're what you're founding. And common pitfalls, right? I mentioned one earlier is just overstating the market, but I think it's being specific. A lot of presentations sometimes has vague claims like we will revolutionize healthcare, and certainly there are things that will, but I think it's about tangible outcomes. A lot of jargon is really difficult for non-technical healthcare people, and I think we've got to keep things simple and really focus on the patients, providers, or payers. And then, I'm always about the sense of urgency. We're seeing rapid adoption in the Midwest, and funding will help us scale nationally. And I think things like that, giving them a sense of urgency and optimism is important. So we're going to talk a little bit about strategies for securing investment. And I think number one, LinkedIn is just a great place, and I probably could have an entire presentation just on LinkedIn. But here's an example of a company who does help startups, and so you can see this is a screenshot. You can go into LinkedIn ads library and you can look at different ads, and this is just kind of a great way for yourself to do some of your own kind of due diligence and homework of what's possible. So whether it's searching for investors, or as this company does, they help startups with their investment strategy. And this company has been very successful in doing that. Other ways, pilot partnerships, I'm a big fan of, engaging decision makers like CFOs, looking at different titles. Like I'll go back to a hospital example. Sometimes we focus on the CFOs, and when there could be chief innovation officers or strategy officers. And I think there's a number of different other executive leaders you can approach with pilot partnerships, and hospitals are really open. And I know we're always taught to kind of go to those innovation departments, but I think there's a lot of other leaders that would want to partner with you or get you to the right place to partner. Revenue share models are great. This one, I think, maybe some of us have done already in some way, shape, or form. They've had won prizes, and maybe the law firm is offering free services. But think about it also differently, like offer equity for professional services, and that could be in this example here, software firm or marketing, sales, or any other kind of professional services. But how can you how can you think differently about, getting maybe not direct funding, but like indirect funding where you'll need to grow your company. Participate in or organize a healthcare startup. Like here we are. I think these are fantastic. I've met so many people in these, memberships and showcases, and I think we really have to be involved in our community. And that's just a great way. You never know who you're going to meet, or who you can help as well. As we all really can help each other as we're looking to grow our businesses. I like a proof of impact challenge. And these are really kind of interesting to do, and it's a little different. It's creating a public challenge, inviting organizations to trial a solution, and then have incentives for participation. So as this example says, a healthcare analytics startup invites hospitals to test its solution free for 3 months, and offering the chance to win a $50,000 grant for achieving the best patient outcomes. So it gets kind of buzz around what you're doing. And then this is an area that I've seen work really well, is building strategic partnerships with payers. A lot of times payers are looking for different ways to manage their memberships, and they're just a great source, a great resource for us to look as we build out our startups. Co-develop with some large corporations. I know we're sometimes afraid to do that because of our IP, but they need innovation and to the right environment. I think it's a very successful approach. So The other aspect is, I'll wrap up in the next few minutes. Revenue, when you're, even though we have a purpose, right, the purpose-driven part of our fundraising, there needs to be, the margin. And I think it's really important. I have a couple of slides to really talk about why the revenue strategies and the go-to-market plan are key to fundraising. They demonstrate viability. The investors want to know proof of profitability. They want to know that you've diversified your revenue streams because that obviously mitigates risk. They want to see a plan, and that vision to action is really important. And obviously, these are some great questions. I think many people are doing this. Who are your target customers? How will you reach them? What channels? How will you scale? But these are really important. And I even think to some degree on your presentation or on your website too. And it illustrates scalability with growth potential. It validates your market demand. And it also reduces perceived risk, right? Shows how you'll generate an ROI, and it gives confidence as well. And I think the last thing I want to mention, and then I will wrap up, is it's important for tools for communication, because a lot of times we get investments, but what do you do after you get an investor? Do you have any kind of investor relations platform? Do you use emails? Do you have webinar updates? And so I will end here, but I think this is really key. So after your investment, what is that we call it a post-purchase experience on the sales side, but I use this in an investment as well. Are you establishing regular communication? Are you giving transparency? And the reason why this is ultimately so important is because you could go back to those investors. You could ask for referrals. And so what are you doing after somebody gives you an investment? How engaged are you? And with that, I'm going to quickly wrap up and just talk about how your website is really important as an asset. And this is an example of Ernie Els raising awareness for his autistic son, and really utilizing the website as a way to talk about his programs, and so investors can see that. And then I will send this to follow. And you can reach me. I have a podcast called Selling to Healthcare, and I have a healthcare sales mastery book, and you can reach me here. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That was a lot of information packed. So